Hey, what's up, guys? Stormy back with the SuperVerse podcast. Oh my god, I almost said Everyday Geeks. With the SuperVerse podcast today. I'm joined again together with Landon. Um, this is not really a podcast, but this is going to be a spoiler review for the Eternals. I would recommend first before we start. I would recommend if you're watching this video right now and you haven't seen the Eternals to shut this video off as soon as possible and go to the first podcast. And we have a little spoiler-free Eternal section in there. So watch that first. Go watch the movie and come back to this video later. So that's what we are going to do. Landon, I know you love the movie. I love the movie. I can't wait to talk about this. Um, just to start off, like we are going to go back and forth in this conversation. So, but just to start off, like, what is your overall score of the movie? Mine is like I have it as an 8 out of 10 right now.
Yeah, I have it at 8.5 out of 10. The cinematography is what carries this movie. The scaling, the way that Chloe Zhao chose to shoot this movie and the perspective she gave us makes the entire film, in my opinion. There are some plot holes or jumping around and pacing problems that I found not necessarily off-putting, but just something that because of the time frame that the movie takes place in, it was bound to occur somewhere. But it really gets odd when you start getting into kind of the climax of the movie. So definitely 8.5 out of 10. Still very good film. Something I definitely want to see again. Something I intend to see again in theaters. So yeah, solid
Um,
B for me.
I have it at an 8 out of 10. Until like the last half hour of the movie, I was thinking like this is going to be 8.5. I'm going to be completely honest. I think the final act of the movie, um, outside of some really cool things like Makari and Druid, there was just a couple of things missing in that final act for me. So that's why it ultimately became an 8 out of 10 for me. But that can still change. I'm going to watch this movie 2 or 3 more times in the theaters. I'm sure of that. I'm going to watch this movie uh next week again Friday, and then maybe I can appreciate it more and still have it rise to an 8 and a half out of 10. Landon, if I can ask you, do you know anything about the Eternals in the comics?
So I know very general information about them. I know like names,
Mm-hmm.
right? Names mostly. That's what I've seen dropped or the interaction that I've had with it. And then I know some of the like kind of their initial story, which is how they're created by the Celestials, and they were created to be the essentially opposites of the Deviants, which were created first by the Celestials, and that they play a huge role in kind of who we learn to be the mutants in the human race and things along those lines as you go through the comics early comic years, and that's kind of a lot of my interaction with these characters prior to this movie.
um yeah, the Eternals, like I know a little bit out from them. I read a couple of comics. I'm not going to pretend that I know these characters all that much to a T. um the Eternals are a race of in the comics. It is like they changed it up for the movies, but in the comics, they are a race of evolved humans that the Celestials came to Earth once and they did these experiments on early humans, and you got three distinct like groups. You got the Eternals, you got the Deviants, and then you got like the leftover humans that like remained on the planet and like became the superheroes we know and love today. So in the movie, instead, what they have done is make the Eternals synthetic beings, like more like robots, and they are like also created by the Celestials, but instead of being created on Earth, they were created in the World Forge, and they are basically
I
just
think it's
robots.
really so. Hold on a second. I just want to. The coolest part about how they describe this to you in the film is really cool. They call themselves like regenerative beings or entities. So they are synthetic. They are also semi like organic in the sense that they heal similarly to how we heal. Ajax allows them to heal significantly faster, right, and kind of almost immediately. But there is some regenerative properties that they talk about, which is how they live so long. But then they talk about how they don't actually regenerate anything. It's just like the lack of regeneration almost that allows them to remain who they are always, because the regeneration is actually what makes them different from humans. So it's kind of an interesting piece of the movie where they actually kind of talk about themselves like as like in the third person, like an eternal, like who they actually are, what they're actually made from. And it's when they're in their ship, which is kind of an interesting because you have this like this Arishem that sits in the middle of their ship, and they're kind of talking about this while this celestial's shown in its
Mm-hmm.
full form to some degree. So
Dude.
it definitely ears perk up during this point because what Stormy's saying is very true, but they also the movie does tell you about it, so it's really cool to have that kind of exposition to some degree where they're really actually talking about themselves, and it's giving us context for something that we you can't just learn or won't understand without having either read the comics or having that kind of that dialogue available.
Yeah, in the beginning of the movie, like we get this entire like text that we have to read before the movie starts, and immediately as that text is gone and the movie starts, it's like into the action immediately. It's not.
Mhm.
It's directly like boom. Here are the Eternals. These are these characters. They are going to Earth. They were sent by the Celestials. By the way, the Celestials are ginormous, man, in this universe. I remember the Celestials in the comics were like they were like the same size of Galactus. They were like the size of a skyscraper. Man, they are planetly big in this universe, man. I have one question about that, like, and I don't know what your opinions on that is. But is there a chance they made them too big?
No,
Do you think so? Because
not at all.
how
No,
are
no,
the
I don't think so because they create everything in every instance of the Celestials we've seen up to this point. The planets have looked like golf balls or like apples roughly in their hands, right? Small differences between planets and different planets and all that other stuff, but that's roughly what they look like. So think about that. Their hand is at least 4 to 5 times larger than the planet that it's holding. So there's they it looks minuscule, and it should because there's instances like you see Arishem like come to Earth and like appear, right? Especially after the kind of the climax of the movie as we're getting to the resolution of the film. And I think they did a great job. The scaling, the just the overall like the they create universes. Universes and galaxies, or galaxies to them are like rooms to us, right?
mm-hmm.
There's they're big enough, but I don't think they're too big. I feel like they towed that line very perfectly with them because I don't think that they could have done them smaller and gotten the same impact.
Yeah, I think so. I just the only thing that I have with them being so big is like how are the Eternals and like I don't know. There will be a battle with the Celestials when Arishem comes back to judge. Like there will be
Mhm.
a big battle, and I think more heroes will be involved in that. But how are the Eternals and like maybe the new Avengers going to defeat these guys? Like they how? Just how? Like I
Well,
just don't
Cersei
see
just
it.
showed you how it can be done, right? The Eternals have to collect their power and create the Unimind and allow Cersei to access that Unimind and use that power for
But you
herself.
can't forget that Tiamat was a baby Eternal.
I I understand. I'm not saying there won't have to be other factors. I just believe that that's going to be the crux of how if when Arishem, not how, or if when Arishem
Mm-hmm.
comes back to judge, that is going to be a piece of the puzzle, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be like a one for one, and we could get Doctor Strange releasing like Dormammu or some of the other really big bads that exist within maybe the dark dimension, I mean, you even have Wanda Maximoff, who technically, like, she is powerful enough to defeat a Celestial. If you want to really bring powers to that level, like, she would probably be one of the only characters that would actually be capable of this. So I think there is a way, there's a path to it, just like they had a path through this movie to get to where they needed to go and get done what they needed to get done, and stop the emergence. And to your point, they used Tiamat's energy, the celestial energy, to stop Tiamat from
Mm-hmm.
emerging. So like there's the ability to actually leverage Arishem against himself to some degree because Eternals are a part of the Celestial themselves. So there's that connection and probably other connections that we'll start to learn of as Phase 4 and Phase 5 continue to build. Whenever Arishem returns, we will have to deal with this, and I'm sure the story is going to be very intense and it's going to be very violent and there's going to be a lot happening. But I think there's a lot of story to be told in between there, and I think that could fill in some of these gaps that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I hope so, and I hope they explain it in a good way. That when and here's another thing, like, should the Celestials be defeated, but because they are basically a part of the universe. So if they are going to have to, like, so-called kill the Celestials, like, how are new universes going to be made? How are new planets going to be made? Is that even
I don't think that.
possible?
I mean, so okay,
Mm-hmm.
the this and the so let's just get into this. The Eternals, their goal in this film is to rid the world of deviants. And deviants were something that the Celestials created, which then became unable to control. And so through the lack of control, they created the Eternals, who are like literally robots, right? We just talked about they're like synthetic beings to some degree. Their task is to destroy all deviants and then wait for the emergence of the celestial egg that has been placed within Earth or the planet that they're guarding, because this happens on not just Earth but billions of other planets as well. So if there's a celestial war, I don't think we're done with celestials. Does that make sense?
No, I
Just
don't think
because
so.
there's not any more at that time doesn't mean that there's not already other seeds with Eternals
Yes.
on that planet to emerge.
Mm-hmm.
So more celestials can exist even if a celestial war takes place. So I don't know what that looks like, what the outcome looks like, what all of that scaling happens, and what property this plays under. But if that does take place, I don't think that Celestials are just done. I think that we'll see more emerge, but there might be a time period in the MCU or even throughout this universe that yes, there is no more Arishem. There is no more of like these ancient Celestials that have been around since the beginning of the universe overall.
Here's, like, the biggest plot of the movie, in my opinion. I mean, not really the plot, but, like, the biggest story of the movie was the story between Cersei and Icarus. And I
Mhm.
think that was, like, to many people, the best thing in the movie. um you get this entire, like, uh timeline of, like, them falling in love with each other, starting a relationship, getting married, having sex, um, and all those things. So, was I the only one who saw Icarus going heel turn coming from miles away?
I mean, I expected it to some degree. I just didn't expect it to happen the way that it was portrayed in this film. I did not see that coming at all.
And what? And
So,
what?
Stormy,
Yeah, yeah.
I
Ask me.
have to ask for for the relationship with Icarus and Cersei. How much of it do you think, like, clearly? I mean, the literally beginning of this movie, they talk for the very first time, and his words back to her after she has this like eloquent little like diatribe about like what she's seeing and what she's explaining and how beautiful it is and all this other stuff. He's like, "I am Icarus,"
Mm-hmm.
right? Like it's just like the weirdest, most like bland response you can get from somebody. And it's just so weird. But like the way that they develop the connection to these characters and you like emotionally connect with these characters. Do
Oh
you think they
man.
intentionally created the plot point of Icarus taking place or like kind of heel turning on the Eternals because of how they wanted to set up the relationship in the first place with Cersei? right? Like they wanted it to be a story focused on both of them. Do you think that they intentionally made Icarus the way he was in this film because it played better when his ultimate betrayal happened?
I think it did. I think because it came to a point where Icarus left Cersei.
Mhm.
Cersei gets to know Dane Whitman, falls in love with him, starts a relationship with him.
Like a few thousand years or
A
so,
few
kind of deal.
thousand years later, but okay. Um, and I think why they made Icarus ultimately heel turn was just because of the, how do you have to say it? Um, I think the Eternals, because he was the only one who knew the plan of the Celestials besides Ajak. So
Mhm.
I think Icarus, and I think his character and the way Richard Madden acts as Icarus kind of like depicts this, but he's kind of a guy. He's the military leader of the Eternals, so he's kind of this guy who will choose the plan of the Celestials over everything else, while Cersei is like invested in in the human beings, you know, and every other Eternal is basically thinking the same as Cersei, other than Sprite, but Sprite has her own reasons to follow Icarus because she loves him, but she can't be together with him because she's trapped in a kid body. So
Mhm.
I saw his like heel turn coming from miles away. I think just like and this is just basically like casting Richard Madden in this role already. I already knew because he's like the type of actor that is like the heel in every movie almost that he plays in. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I don't have so I don't have that much to say about that part of the movie. I think you can inform much more about that. But like
Yeah. So,
I liked it. Go ahead.
yeah. Basically what we're talking about is the whole beginning of this movie. So we learn of the Eternals. We watch all of this take place in 7000 BC, and then all of a sudden we shoot to present day London, and we're introduced to Cersei and Dane Whitman and Sprite, and Cersei lives with Sprite, and Cersei teaches, and Dane's also a professor, and then you have them interact with their first deviants, and then Icarus shows up, and he claims he's been tracking it for however many days and all this other stuff, and it's the tension and the emotion and the interaction between Icarus and Cersei that we're really keying on here, because it's as we mentioned, they're aware of everyone else's, mortal being or essence, and they know that they will always exist forever. So there's always a part of Cersei that feels like she's going to love Icarus because he's truly the only one that she could be with for her life, because no one else is going to live as long as she is. Not even any human companion that she takes will ever manage to be that way. And Icarus left her for whatever. He doesn't even justify it in this movie at all. They talk about it and he still doesn't give a justification. He basically just says that he couldn't handle knowing the truth anymore. Right? He couldn't handle knowing the truth and not being able to tell Cersei. But I believe this leads back to kind of something that Chloe Zhao said, and maybe this is another writer or someone associated with the film, that Cersei is like the spiritual leader of the Eternals. Ajax is the physical leader. She's the actual Prime Eternal. She's the appointed Eternal to interact with the Celestials during the emergence time frame, or be prior to the emergence, and she shares with Icarus this information that, you know we destroy planets,
Mm-hmm.
basically. We protect and destroy planets. And Icarus, that tears him apart. And the inability to share that with Cersei, I think, is Icarus's ultimate downfall. And I think that's a lot of the story that's trying to be told as we go through the beginning of this film. They're trying to show how Cersei has remained herself. And yes, she's changed and evolved and grown with the humans, but she has changed to become a true eternal. She has seen and grown and changed over time eternally, and taken all that wisdom back into her own life. And you see Icarus, who's still basically the same as he was when we first introduced to him. So there's a lot of change in kind of like human storytelling that happened within this story, and we're in this like plot and between Icarus and Cersei, especially Sprite and then we have this great interaction with Gilgamesh and Athena. This movie isn't about, vast cosmic beings that come in and stop the celestial from destroying Earth. It's really about human interaction, human relationships, but it's hidden within this other this other story. And I think that's why the relationship of Icarus and Cersei is so powerful, but it's also what gets us to connect the Celestials quicker, or not Celestials, the Eternals quicker, and why this movie was a success to me, because it drives home those hard hitting
Uh
plot
huh.
points of everyone can relate to this.
Yeah, that's
Everyone can
true.
relate
And
to these pieces, these plot points,
I
and it's not
also
unique.
I also think that the amount of exposition in this movie, uh, was done justice, and it was needed, because you have this entire big and ensemble cast that you really need to have a lot of exposition. And I think I see people, some of the critics that have been giving this movie a rotten review, their complaint is that there's too much exposition and too less action. But the thing is, like, if you're going to do this type of movie to explain the history of the Marvel universe, there's no way that you're going to get away with like no exposition, no story, only action. That's just not
Mhm.
this movie. And that's why I think this movie was so great, that this was the first Marvel movie that really that really served a purpose, in the sense of like, let's tell a story and let's do it in another way than we already did.
Mhm. Yeah, it takes the MCU formula of
Mhm.
introduce us to a character, show us a little bit of their origin, show us how they have powers or what they're capable of, test them again, show them defeated, then have them climb all the way up to the main conflict after the defeat, and they rocky montage it all the way through their training to the final conflict or battle where they win and defeat the bad guy or the villain, and then the resolution as we build forward into the universe. This story is much different than any other MCU film, because most MCU films follow that path and will always follow that path. That is the formula that got the MCU to be the MCU. However, the reason this film works and plays differently, it subverts your expectations entirely. It takes that normal introduce you to the characters. You still begin with the introduction and get a little bit of their origin, but then it pulls you forward into kind of like this middling time period where you're actually in present day, but you continue to jump back in time. So there's the beginning of the film, which is 7,000 BC, and then you immediately jump to 2024, which I believe is the time period that this is set in present day MCU. So there's this vast time period that they have to play with, and there's no other way to show, share, and appreciate and connect with these characters other than to show what's currently happening and then show them again in these impactful flashback historical sequences, that like Babylon and like the fall of the Roman Empire and like, the fall of the Aztec Empire, and like certain pieces that, things I'm just picking out. I don't even know if this is real or right. I haven't done my research on this yet, or whatever they were depicting in that movie, but they were depicting a lot of key historic kind of like downfalls or wars or attrition throughout history that they were present for and had to witness. And it all goes back to that like human connection of like they've lived this long and they've had all of this trauma and they can't interfere. They're not supposed to interfere. They're told not to interfere. And then it gets to the point where none of them can handle that pressure and that stress anymore, because what human individual can, when you see bad things happening to other humans, you try your best to stop that from taking place. And the Eternals have become now more human with their emotions and their thinking and their insights and perspective than they have been Eternals ever, because they've only ever interacted with the human race. So they're really set up for the turn against the Celestials that you see in this film through a lot of that story arc, and how they're subverting the timing and where you're getting conflict and when you're getting conflict, and how through the movie you have this like exposition, rise to conflict,
Yep.
exposition, rise to conflict, exposition, rise to conflict, and then all those pieces of conflict tie
Come
back
together.
into the main
Yes.
final climax of the film that then tie the whole story together, and you make that final approach towards the climax, and then before you get to the resolution. So this film is done magnificently from a planning and plot standpoint, and you get like on the edge of your seat, and then it comes back to, okay,
Yep.
all right, I'm gonna go learn about something.
And then you
You
go
get
back
up
to your
here
seat.
again,
Yep.
and then you come right back again,
Yeah,
and then
true.
you finally get to that final climax, and you're just literally like hand over mouth, like looking down like this. You are literally like going through all of the emotions you can possibly think of as you're watching this final battle, as you're watching the celestial emerge from Earth and
It's
just
basically
destroy
the
everything in its path.
the entire movie feels like you're getting on the edge, but you can't, like, because like it's November. So
But we also know where it's going, right? That's the cool part about the film
oh,
is
he
like
didn't he
it
didn't got
doesn't
the he didn't
hide.
got the he didn't got it.
Yeah,
Never
like
mind.
yeah, I didn't get it
No,
at
okay,
all.
go
But
ahead.
so like it also talks about like kind of you know where the film's going from the very
Mm-hmm.
beginning. Once they jump to present day, Cersei lays the film out for us in the first like 25 to 30 minutes. If you pay attention to what she has to say and how she's saying it, what she's actually trying to communicate to Sprite and Icarus when she's interacting with them, you know where the rest of this movie goes almost instantaneously. So
Yep.
as they build these strings of conflict that continue to rise, even if it's historical conflicts that get you wondering what's taking place, you have all of that to just continue to get you, okay, this is happening. When is it happening? It's kind of like one of those mystery thriller movies where like you know that jump scare is coming and you just don't know when it's coming. So you're still scared because it's like the thrill of when is it going to happen? And I feel like that's what a lot of this movie is. You sit on the edge of your seat a lot of it because you're like, okay, when are we going to see Tiamat? Once they mention Tiamat, I'm like, okay, when is this emergence starting? Because I feel like once you have that flashback with Ajax, you understand a lot more about the timeline, when everything started, how it started, and what the ultimate goal is. And once you have that interaction between Ajax and Icarus and you see it at Ajax Farm in South Dakota, you are like your head's already at the final battle because you've
Yep.
seen everything up to that point that's going to bring you to understand where that final battle and how that takes place. So it's really cool to be able to like kind of put the puzzle together as you're watching it take place because it's jumping around. And yes, it hurts the film a little bit because it leaves gaps, it leaves holes in storylines you might want to see finish or conversations you think you need to hear the end of. But I feel like it pulled enough of it together at the end to make it a successful movie and how it ties its story together.
What are your opinion? Look, here's one thing, and this is one thing about the movie that I really really enjoyed, and I never got this from any Marvel movie, any MCU movie. This movie delivered very well on the characters, emotions, and relationships. I never really cared for any relationship in the MCU, for any for any relations in the MCU, especially like look, Pepper and Tony, like Steve Rogers and Peggy Carter. These are like relationships that oh look, these are cool relationships, these are fun relationships, but I don't really care because I care about other things in the movie. As of this movie, I really got like sucked into the emotions, and I got really like sucked into these stories between these persons, and like between these Eternals and their relationships. And I think that's also has to do with like that these were just a bunch of like A-class actors. uh some of the actors in this, man, are so good at like emotionally acting.
Yeah,
Barry
micro
Keoghan.
expressions.
Yeah,
Yeah, micro expressions, and they show that.
Barry Keoghan who plays Druig, especially, like that guy is like amazing if you watch his emotional scenes in any type of projects that he plays in. And
Mhm.
the actress Gemma Chan did a great job, and like Festo is also like Brian Tyree Henry. These are all like actors, except for Kumail Nanjiani maybe, but he's more of like a comedy actor. But like I had a feeling that all these actors in this movie are all trained to like emotionally to have like their own like emotional potential to act in a movie. If I say
I mean,
that
they've all
correct.
proven so they've all proven that they have the ability to display a full emotional range within a film. and I think that all of them have done that successfully, to your point, except for Kumail Nanjiani. And that's nothing against him, not saying he can't do it or couldn't learn it or isn't capable of it. He just hasn't been given the opportunity yet in any property to do that because of the nature of his character in the properties he's within has not given him that opportunity to do it. He's gotten close in a few other ones. The Big Sick is one that I know. He was kind of a transformative role in that for me. Felt like he really carried that film, but I don't think he did enough here to get that praise. But that again isn't on him. That's on the way his character was written, the character he's portraying, and how he's portraying them or being asked to portray them. But yeah, I completely agree, Stormy. One thing I do want to ask you: these 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 deviants through the film, we see variations of them, right? And Icarus mentions that they're like evolving, right? He's very aware of this because of kind of what he does and how he sets it all up, and kind of allows them to start to evolve. Um, but what did you think of Crow? Ultimately,
Um,
the kind of like the lead deviant.
my opinion on Crow is basically that I think um he died at a point where he was just getting cool. So here's the thing that I have with Crow. Like, the deviants looked cool. They were cool. Like, they looked amazing. Like, that CGI on the deviants was like A class. But you get then this deviant who is slowly evolving, and he comes at a point where he is like getting super intelligent, where he gets like a voice. Actually, it was Bill Skarsgård. I didn't know that you know that, but
Yep, I
like
knew that.
then he just like dies so uh yeah, I think his dad didn't got done justice for that character. I think he's kind of wasted in my opinion. But here's one thing, and I don't know if you picked up on this. Crow and Tina have an actual relationship in the comics.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you picked up on this, but
I heard about it before.
right before right before
Oh,
Tina kills Crow, Crow tells Tina like, remember, remember.
mm-hmm.
And then Tina kills him, and like then you get this close up on Tina, and she says like, I do remember. And then like it cuts back to like the fight. Now, is that a hint that on a previous Earth, that got destroyed,
Previous
Crow,
planet, yeah.
previous planet, Crow and Tina had a relationship?
So I think that's a part of like the Athena wary piece of this, right? Where she
Mm-hmm.
kind of like her mind is like her mind is slowly eating itself or collapsing in on itself because of the weight of her memories. Because she's not supposed to have these memories. These memories are supposed to be wiped, but she keeps them. And I think that Crow was um also a deviant that had that happen to him prior to Eternals being created. Right? Because we learn in the film that the deviants were created first, and then they were the ones that were supposed to kind of intentionally kind of go wipe planets so that the intelligent life can thrive, but they couldn't be controlled, and they continued to attack the intelligent life to survive, and they became basically the predator themselves and created the prey, which then forced the Celestials to create the Eternals. So I think kind of what you're alluding to here is how Crow appears to have been a deviant that did not have his memories wiped through the last who knows how many planets or how many years that he experienced prior to getting to Earth. And when he was brought to Earth, it was prior to the Ice Age. So it had to be way back when, 7,000, 6,000
Mm-hmm.
BC. And I think that he had interaction with Thena on the previous planet, the one that
Yep.
she calls out. I can't remember exactly what it Cersei 6 or something like that. I thought it started with a
Century
C.
6.
Century 6. That's what it was, Century 6. So it's kind of cool that like they dropped that in there because it is kind of a callback. But I'm not sure. I think Crow ultimately was a really fun character within the
He
film.
was. Yeah, he was.
I
But like,
liked the aspect of him absorbing the energy, kind of taking their essence a little bit. But I do think that his death could have been timed better, or it could have been less dramatic. I think The way they set it up with him and Thena was good. I think the way that she actually killed him was awesome.
Oh
That like
man,
whole like the way that she just like created those weapons and then just did like those two moves and he was just
slice.
like yeah, like diced completely. Loved it. Um I do wish it was a little bit more of like a menacing. Like Crow is very quick, right? His intention is to just absorb your energy and leave you to die or leave you as the shell of yourself. But I think that like he they could have had that scene linger more. It could have him and Thena could have had more of a conversation through that fight or battle or whatever you want to call it. And I think that that could have led us down a better path with their history, how their history has interacted. Maybe even have Thena like have a flashback at that moment to like the first time that she interacted with Crow or like recognized Crow to what he is today. That it just something to make that comic relationship
Makes
feel like
sense.
it existed in the
Mm-hmm.
MCU. We just didn't see it. It already took place. It already happened.
I have an interesting question for you. Because we are going back and forth, I now have a question for you. Do you think, and this is going to be that we are going to talk a little bit more in the when we talk about the post credit scenes. Do you think the Eternals are able to evolve, just like the Deviants, and become more human? Say that a Celestial bonds with a human, say, and that Eternal gets a kid with a human. I'm just saying something. That kid becomes half Eternal then. So will that mean that the second generation of Eternals on this planet, I'm just like pure hypothetical, become like human Eternals, fleshy Eternals to say it that way, who are not synthetic? Because I think it's explained that on Titan, the original Eternals, Alars and Zuras, um, are synthetic, and I think they're kids because like Thanos and Eros' mother, I
Mm.
forgot her name right now. She's not an Eternal. She's just a like she's another being from another planet. So when they get kids, Thanos and Eros are Eternals. Thanos with a deviant gene, but they aren't
Mhm.
synthetic. They are real beings, you know.
Yeah, I think it's possible. I wouldn't put it past anything. I feel like if we see anything, it's going to be an eternal human
Mm-hmm.
child before we see anything with the Celestials. I think the Celestials just way too far off, way too large, way too much of a more of like a galactic level being for them to like interact too much with humans. I mean, just like the sheer vastness of Arishem compared to Cersei. I mean, you could literally lose Cersei in Arishem's face when
Mm-hmm.
you were watching the film because she's that small compared to him. So like it's certainly possible. I don't doubt any of that. I just think if we're going to see something like that happen, I I personally believe it'd be like an eternal human type interaction. But yeah,
Um.
so
Yeah.
so
Go ahead.
curious, Stormy, Celestials, right? There's a lot of Celestials out there. There's the main one that we interact with in this film is Arishem.
The
So
Prime
Arishem
Celestial.
the Judge, right? Arishem the Judge. But what do you know about this Tiamat? So Tiamat
All right.
is a celestial that exists in the comics, has a story.
Mm-hmm.
What do you know about this Tiamat? Because to me, this is kind of like a character we're never going to explore more in the MCU, I think, now, simply because of what just took place. But it is going to be a fun callback to potentially something as we move forward. So I'm curious, who is
There.
Tiamat? What is he? What is his name? Like Arishem the Judge?
All right.
If
So
you have something along those lines.
so Tiamat's like celestial name is basically Tiamat the sleeping celestial. So something about the same type of thing happens in the comics where Tiamat, because like in the comics the celestial are much smaller in scale, so Tiamat emerges right next to the bridge in San Francisco. I forgot the name of that bridge.
Golden Gate.
Golden Gate Bridge. So he's just standing there and then he shuts off. Um he's like a celestial where something went wrong, and like when he merges, like he turns off, like his power like gets drained and gets into the earth. So Tiamat in the Marvel comics is just a celestial who's just standing there still next to the Golden Gate Bridge in the comics, and he just like he does nothing. Um, Tiamat doesn't really have anything to do in the comics, and I think, and this is a little theory that I have, because Tiamat emerges from the sea in the MCU, I think this will be the way that they are going to explain that the Atlanteans are going to war with Wakanda, because they will be. I think Namor is going to think is. How do you have to explain it? The sea definitely got destroyed in
Yeah,
that
the
sea.
bottom of the sea in like
Got destroyed.
near the Canary Islands.
Yeah.
I don't know where exactly those exist on the map to this day.
The Canary Islands are
Are
like,
they Atlantic Ocean? If they're the Atlantic
it's
Ocean, then
Atlantic Ocean, and it's like
yeah. So
right
then
next to Africa.
yeah. So then yeah, it will we'll definitely be seeing, I think, some of that impact here.
No, but
I
Tiamat
mean,
really.
the whole bottom of the sea got
Oh
forced,
yeah,
right?
but yeah,
Completely forced.
Tiamat doesn't really have anything to do in the comics besides just standing there. And I think he will remain on the planet just like he got turned into stone, and he will become like a tourist attraction, to say it that way, just
Oh,
like he was
completely
in
agree.
the.
I mean, this whole thing is now like a tourist attraction.
And here's
Half the
the
space out,
here's
hand up.
here is here's one more thing that happens with Tiamat in the comics, and I think this is actually cool, because Tiamat was in planet Earth, was in the core of planet Earth. I don't know how it happened, but some of his like energy got into the Earth's base, into the Earth's water, into the Earth's like ground. So this is actually the explanation how some humans are able to evolve into mutants, you know?
I like
So
that. Yeah, this
basically, yeah.
oh, that would be a great setup to like have the energy that was released from Tiamat into the planet change
Uh-oh.
the biology on it so that now are capable of mutation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hope so. I think that's definitely
Be
what they're
awesome.
going to do. Landon, I'm just going to inform you real quick that your camera and your sound is really bugging at the moment. So if you don't mind, I'm going to like pause the recording real quick. All right, we're back. Landon, um, who was your favorite Eternal?
My favorite Eternal,
Yeah.
the one I probably had the most emotional connection with had to be Cersei
Mm-hmm.
because of just her role within the film. Um, so I'd safely say Cersei right now. I do want to watch the film again with kind of the second view perspective and really see who I start to connect with more throughout it. But as of today, yeah, it's Cersei.
I gotta go with Makari, man. Here's the thing, man. Makari, like the actress who plays Makari, is my favorite actress from The Walking Dead. And I just think like the way they brought over her powers onto the big screen, like this is how I always imagined like speedsters to like how speedster powers would look in live action, not like the crap that the Flash and Quicksilver has been giving us over the years. And like here's one thing that I really liked about Makari, her relationship with Druig. And like when Icarus like laser beams Druig into the volcano, like the way she screams is really that got me, man, because like that's like a deaf scream, and deaf people don't make any sound except when they get emotional, you know. So that was something when I saw that scene, I was like, oh man, that's I felt that one.
The actress pulled that scene off perfectly.
Oh
Like
man,
I can imagine what that had to be like trying to portray that or re get your mind in that mental state to be able to actually like have that level of like an outburst almost like in a good way because like that was like a freaking gut wrenching scene. I like when Icarus started turning on all the Eternals, dude. I
man.
like. it just like your heart sinks instantly, and you're just like, Icarus is the strongest one. None of them are gonna beat him. What are we gonna do? What is the end of this movie right now?
And maybe look,
Oh.
I have a small theory that the way look Gilgamesh tells Icarus like, "Fine, I'll have it," and he gets killed. If Icarus really knew that Gilgamesh wouldn't be able to get all these deviants on his own, he would stick to who he would have stick with him, but he didn't. So it was his plan all along to get rid of Gilgamesh because he knows that Gilgamesh would be quite like strength powers the only one to go
Mhm.
up against him, you know?
So he knows that he can't beat Gilgamesh and Athena.
No.
Like automatically, the pair that pairs themselves off, he knows that he can't mess with them at all. He can't touch them. The moment he tries something with them, he's in trouble. So he has to start to weaken and take out the other Eternals first, and then allow the Deviant, which actually is gaining those powers and the ability to regenerate, aka he killed Ajax, he basically fed it to this Deviant. Um, so now you see this face off with Gilgamesh and this Deviant, and I had zero expectation Gilgamesh was going to make it through that. I was like, he is a done for. Crow is taking over, and this is when you first see like super intelligent Crow. Crow can speak and interact, and actually seems like somewhat humanoid. So really, really interesting take, but I totally saw that setup. Like the moment that they first separated, when you finally see that in the film, and they talk about their separation and how Cersei ended up with Sprite, and Ajax ended up alone, and Icarus ended up alone, and Makari ended up in the ship, and you know, Gilgamesh and Athena went off, and Phastos went off, and Kingo went off, and like they all did their own thing, right? And Druig basically abandoned them and said, "I'm these are my people. Like, don't mess with me and my people anymore." So pulling all that in, yeah, Icarus, like he is very intelligent when you look at how he started to put the pieces together to make his desires to fulfill the Celestials' wants and needs before anybody else's, and he made the film what it is and the conflicts what they were because of how he put things into place. And you see this later on in the film with his interaction with Ajax, and it's very um, maniacal,
Mm-hmm.
very like sinister, right? If I might use that word, I'm not throwing a lot
Yeah,
around a lot
he's
today.
basically the Homelander of this universe
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
but like even more maniacal because he has that like I am the good boy, I play the good boy, I am everything good boy, and then he's like plotting behind the scenes and
Yep.
only shows certain people certain sides of himself, and it's very unique to this movie and his interaction through the Eternals like family dynamic and things like that. So I love that aspect of the film, and like that how you get to like 2 hours into this movie and you learn how deceitful Icarus has been, and
One more.
how like he just completely tore the Eternals apart. He's acting like he's trying to bring them back together, but he is actively tearing them apart
Yes.
as he's bringing them together, which is super like 3D chess, 4D chess level of thinking and plotting and things like that.
So at the end of the movie, when Icarus flies to the sun and flies into the sun, did he kill himself, or will they actually explain it that he's like Superman and that he gets the powers from the sun?
Man, I don't know. So technically, he runs off celestial energy that is given to him by Ereshkigal or his creator. So if you want to say that the Celestials create everything, and they do say that in this film that they create the suns, they create the planets, and you literally witness Ereshkigal creating a planet from dust and meteor and gas and everything else within space. Um, I truly believe that he could just power himself up through this. I think we could see him fly right through the sun in a future scene where we think that that's the end of him, but he really goes just right through it and absorbs its energy and then is able to use it and other stars in the galaxy, in the universe, as his energy source. Because I think one thing we're going to learn about Icarus is that if he's not within his eternal family or like with other Eternals, he's going to, not that he will lose energy, but he just won't be as powerful. So I think they're going to have to find another source of energy for him. I could totally see him doing that thing with the sun.
Landon, can we start talking about the post-credit scenes, please?
Of course.
Man, these two post-credit scenes, and I said it in the podcast also. These two post-credit scenes, in my opinion, were the two best post-credit scenes since Thanos. You know?
Since the original Avengers, yeah. And the
Yeah.
only other one I could argue that is just as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 2 because
Adam
of the
Warlock.
tease, because of the character tease that you get in the second one that I'm sure we'll talk about here.
Dude,
Um,
really quick
but the
about
first
that.
one was great, dude. The first
Oh,
one was
man.
phenomenal. It caught me so off guard. I've stayed away from spoilers for this movie from day one. My attempt in this current day and age is to stay away from as much spoilers as I can. Plot leaks are one thing, things that like seem to be kind of rumors and stuff like that, I'll kind of look at. But if it's like a hard leak or like confirm this is happening, I don't touch it. I don't care. I'm not gonna spoil the movie for myself. So this was all brand new. I only knew who it was because of prior research I did after learning a lot about Thanos. After the first Avengers movie, kind of doing the same thing. Who is that in the post-credit scene? Who are they supposed to depict? And that was Eros, his
Star
brother.
Fox. Yep.
Star Fox, yeah, whatever you want to call him technically. Portrayed by Harry Styles, which was absolutely absurd to me, but also like I didn't hate it. So like, good job, congratulations. You didn't take this pop culture person and kind of just throw them into a role and make us like them or force us to like them. They actually played well. Like I thought he did a really
Well,
good job, and how
here's
he
a
like came in and held his presence. And again, I did my research on this character, so I have an idea of how he's supposed to act, who he's supposed to be, and kind of his mental perspectives. But Stormy, I'd love to get your thought process on this because like, dude.
All right. So the scene, the first post-credit scene opens with like Tina, Makari, and Druig on the Domo talking to each other, and they sense that something is wrong with the other Eternals on Earth. So then you get this like rainbow
Oh,
portal.
wait.
So go ahead.
The beginning of this post-credit scene does not start with them there. Doesn't it start with Arishem taking the other Eternals?
But was that really the
Or is
post?
that just the end of the film?
That was the end of the film.
Oh,
Then the
okay,
credits.
the
Yeah.
end of the film, we witness
Oh
the
yeah, it's
Eternals
true. We have to
split.
talk about
So
that.
so that is something to think about here. We have, as you mentioned, Druig, Makari, and Thena on the Domo, their ship out in space, and this happens immediately at the end of the movie. After the big battle, they get on the Domo, they leave. Cersei and who is it? Sprite and Fastos.
Kingo,
Uh,
Fastos, and Cersei.
Yep. Yeah. Oh yeah. Kingo, Fastos, and Cersei are then, because Sprite is relieved of her eternalness,
Yep.
essentially, and allowed to become
I have one
a
question
human
about
to grow
that.
up.
I have one question about that. So she is a human now, but did she remain her powers?
No.
Because no,
No.
because isn't she still?
She can't have them because she's now human.
All right, yeah, true.
That was the energy that was transferred to Cersei,
Yep.
right? Her eternal energy was transferred to Cersei.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so they're gone. So then, as you open in this post-credit scene, Makari is staring at like this hologram of Earth, looking for the Eternal signature and not seeing it, and they're concerned about what has happened to the other Eternals because
Yep.
they did not get taken like the others did by Arishem.
Yeah, and then you get like the scene where like they are talking, and then like suddenly they hear something in the hallway, and you see this like rainbow portal opening up. It kind of looks similar to like the Bifrost in my opinion, opening up. And that out of that portal comes Pip the Troll. Pip the Troll is a Marvel character that has major connections to both like Thanos and Adam Warlock, and also to Arrows, aka Star Fox. And then he starts like saying all these words, like you see like a silhouette of like a person coming into the scene, and Pip the Troll is like announcing him, just like he's announcing like a WWE match, to call it that way. And you see arrows coming in, and then he says like the famous Star Fox, and then you see Harry Styles, who plays arrows in this universe, Star Fox. Star Fox is a character who basically is such a jerk in the comics, man. He's like, he uses his powers to like get sexual with women, to say it that way.
Yeah.
He's like really messed up sometimes.
He's a playboy.
He's a
Is
playboy.
this way you can like compare him? He's like he's that super popular guy that he's got all the looks. He's got everything every woman wants to some degree from their own perspective, and he delivers on it. But he has more of like I'd say he has more of like a jerk
Yeah.
esque type personality where it's like him first. He doesn't really care about anything else. So it'll
He
be
never
interesting to see how
wanted
they
to be
portray him
he never
in
wanted to
this.
be a here's the thing, he never wanted to be a hero. He only becomes a
Mhm.
hero after Thanos kills his mother, and then he decides to like become Star Fox, you know. And here's why I think Harry Styles casting as Star Fox works so well, because first of all, this is something many people not know, but Harry Styles can act. Like, I don't know,
Mhm.
was it in Dunkirk or in 1917? I don't remember which of one of the two it was that I saw he was in. I think it was Dunkirk. You
I'd
see
have to
us.
look at his IMDb page,
I
but I
think
know he was in one of those two
I'm
films or
pretty sure it was
made an
Dunkirk.
appearance.
You
But
really
wasn't
can
he
see.
also an actor prior to? So he's obviously a famous singer, right? Very
Yeah.
famous singer. And but I thought he was an actor or was in some sort of something when he was really young before the rest of his singing career took off, which kind of led him to have the foundation for something like this or the
Could be.
capability. Now we're seeing a
I
lot of
don't know that,
crossovers
man.
these days between like a singer thinks they can act and an actor thinks they can sing and all this other stuff, right? So I'm not saying that he will kill it or is going to give us this Oscar worthy performance. I just think that right now he's potentially the best viewpoint we have for Star Fox.
Mm-hmm.
He has the look, he can master that arrogance, but he also has that like that silky voice that
No,
he
and
can
he
really like
also
kind of like persuade people and kind of like be like, hey, see it from my perspective, like.
and also like he's like the type of guy like every woman would like to get,
Mhm.
like, you
Oh,
know.
exactly. Oh,
So,
like 100%.
and like, yeah, it's funny. Like, it's funny that he's cast, but it also works in one sense. And I think he's going to do a great job. Now, what I was really interested in, how did he receive that herb? That like that orb. The same one that goes into Cersei, he has that one in his hand. Not the same one, but
Well, I
he
would say it's
also
not the
has one.
same one, but it's an eternal
Mm-hmm.
celestial interaction, which means that he might have been given a task from another celestial. Because that's essentially what those are, right? Those are the celestials' form of tasks for eternal teams or eternal families. So he's proven that he either is a prime eternal, has killed a prime eternal, or was chosen by a prime eternal who was killed
I think. Look here.
to take over this task. And I'm intrigued to know what the task is because they make it very clear in this one what the task is for these Eternals. But how do we handle it when we have other Eternals, aka Star Fox, show up and have his own celestial task?
Before we start talking about the last post-credit scene, I really quickly want to like inform you about like a theory that's going around right now. But what if Thanos' plan to erase half of the universe, half of the population of the universe, was not for his own sake, but because he knew what the Celestials were planning and he wanted to delay the emergences?
Oh, I agree. I think that the reason that Thanos seems to be the Mad Titan is because nobody else has seen or knows what he knows. I think Titan, his home planet, went through something similar with Eternals or Celestials or all like something kind of what we just witnessed. Not saying it's an emergence or anything else, just something very similar to what just took place in the Eternals film, and that is what drove him to say that this is the only way. Because if Celestials then have half of every planet's population cut, then they lose the celestials growing within that planet lose that energy source, and it takes that many more millions of years potentially for them to gain it back. Right? Look at the impact of the blip that we've just seen through the MCU and what we witnessed through not only just Spider-Man Far From Home, but also Falcon and Winter Soldier, and really seeing like the true like human impact of the blip. So there's a huge piece of this that I think has to overlap with Thanos' overall plan that states he had to do what he did, and he was inevitable, because if he wasn't, then emergences continue to take place. And I think that was his goal. He was in Eternal with the deviant gene, so he was definitely aware of this cycle within the universe. And I think that after he witnessed what happened to his planet, Titan, he was like, this cannot happen anywhere else. And the only way to stop it is this way. And yes, it seems crazy. Yes, it seems mad. And we're all like, we hate Thanos because he's the big bad of the Infinity Saga. But like looking at it from the outside in, we are one planet in a galaxy full of planets, in a universe full of galaxies full of planets. And he he did what he needed to do to put his mind at ease, to say that he knows for a fact he would never witness another celestial emergence.
Man,
I agree. I mean, I totally agree with that theory. I think that it plays way more now that the Eternals is out, and we have some of these connections and pieces to say this makes more sense than just this wild fan theory that took place before, when we were all just trying to figure out why Thanos was doing what he was doing.
I think if they do that, if they explain that, that's the biggest retcon that will ever take place in the movie. Like, because like you make the villain, because here's the thing. Thanos is already a very sympathizing villain. You can sympathize in his ways. So if
Oh
they
yeah,
do this, you make him you go like he's like more of an anti-hero, to say it that way right now,
yeah, he
because he
really
wanted
is.
to save the universe.
But again, if that was his real plan, if that is what he witnessed, and if that was what he decided to take action with, and how he decided to do it, then yes, he's an anti-hero.
Now I just think it's sad that we're never going to see Thanos and Eros work together.
I don't.
Or
I
maybe
don't at
we,
all.
dude, maybe we can get like a flashback scene.
I think that's what's coming more so than anything else.
Oh man,
I think Thanos will be back, but I think it'll be through another means. It'll be like a flashback scene with Eros and uh his
Alars.
his family on Titan,
Yep.
right?
All
So
right. The last post-credit scene, and this is the post-credit scene. I was exciting about the first one, but this post-credit scene blew my mind for multiple reasons. I'm a big fan of Dane Whitman in the comics. Dane Whitman becomes the Black Knight, and it's explained in the movie that his family has a history, and Cersei tells him to um, uh, stop, like, how do I have to say it? He to talk with his uncle, and his uncle is Nathan Garrett, who's like the second Black Knight, to say it that way. So his family has like a family history that dates back to Sir Percy of Scandia, who was like a right hand of King Arthur of Avalon, and he got this like while Arthur had Excalibur. Uh, per, Percy has had his own weapon called the Ebony Blade, and the Ebony Blade gets passed on to his ancestors, and now is coming into the hands of Dane Whitman, and you see that he wants to use this weapon to save Cersei. That's basically like the only reason that he's like going going to try to become the Black Knight. You see how I have to try this, he says.
Mhm.
First of all, before we start talking about the voice at the end, the ebony blades gave me symbiote vibes.
Oh, big time. Yeah,
And here's the
it
thing.
has very, very similar uh, attributes
Here's the thing.
as the Necro Sword.
A Necrosword is able to kill a Celestial. That's why Nowhere was killed in the comics, and that's supposedly how he died in the MCU. So
Mhm.
what if we are all underestimating the Black Knight right now, and what if the Ebony Blade is actually a blade that is it doesn't need to be symbiotes, but what if this blade is more powerful than it was in the comics, and this blade actually has like celestial killing power?
I mean, I think it does. I think that was a lot of the hint to why Cersei was trying to point Dwayne in
Mm-hmm.
that, or Dane in that position, or in that direction. I think that she knew, but she couldn't be the one to tell him. Dane had to go hear it from his family. It's their family's history. He needs to hear it from his own family. So I think that's why she was pushing that button a little bit, just trying to get Dane to realize who he is, who he's supposed to become, and how he's supposed to change and evolve over the next, couple hundred years, let's say, maybe even 20 or 30 years, just to make it fun. But it's a total setup. Cersei setting him up from the very beginning. You could even potentially say, and this wouldn't be too far of a reach, in my opinion, that the main reason Cersei interacts with Dane in the first place is because she knows who he is, she knows his family history, and she knows what he is capable of and what his family actually has or what is in their family's possession. I think that the reason that she's interacting with Dane the entire time of this film and attempts to protect him on multiple occasions is because she knows how important he is to the rest of this world.
Yep, I think that too. Now, to end
And
this
she
video,
probably saw the ebony blade the very first time it ever existed.
I mean, yeah,
She
they
was
they
probably
hint at
there.
it. They hint at it because, like
Oh
in
no,
the
I know.
movie, like they hint drop King Arthur and Excalibur with like, hey, is
Mhm.
that the Ebony Blade? No, it's Excalibur. And then Sprite tells Tina, oh yeah, Arthur always had a crush on you. So they must have known Arthur and his companions going through that entire time period. So they
Oh yeah,
definitely
no,
hinted at
I
it.
completely agree.
Now,
100%.
to end off this video with the supposed like mystery voice at the end of that post credit scene. When
Dude,
I was
so
listening, oh yeah, go ahead.
all right, so I flipped a nut when this happened. I didn't know what to think. I totally thought that I heard one person, right? So I'm like, okay, this is Sam Jackson, this is Nick Fury.
Mm-hmm.
But I had to, the moment I get out of this film, I get home and I YouTube Sam Jackson acting lines and then do the same thing for Mahershala Ali because I'm like, I cannot tell who it is. It has the depth and tone of Sam Jackson, but
But with
it
the
doesn't sound like his accent. So
yeah,
I'm
and
thrown. I'm so thrown by this. And the fact that it's like a disembodied voice, right, makes it that much crazier because you're just trying to place a voice to somebody else's voice and you don't have any other prior context
I
to
think
that.
they
Now,
I think what happened in recording that line, I think what Mahershala Ali got instructed to do, because it was confirmed by now that it was Blade, Mahershala Ali. So I think he got instructed with delivering that voice like he was like Samuel L. Jackson would like
trying to mimic
tell
him
that,
because
try to mimic
it's
him,
not
but also
Marvel in universe inside joke type thing where
but also
I'm gonna create a team, but instead of it being Nick Fury, it's Marshall Ali as Blade trying to recruit
but
Dane
he
Whitman as
also
Black Knight and
I
Morbius as the living vampire.
I think he was also like taunting the Watcher a little bit. Jeffrey Wright, he also has that type of voice.
Yeah.
So
He has a more recognizable voice in my opinion, and he
yeah,
has that more silky smooth voice where it's he has the accent that you pick up immediately. It's Mahershala and Sam Jackson that have that like depth and boom to their voice a little bit. That because of the depth of it, it's tough for you to actually pick up
Yeah,
on such
that's
a
true.
short sentence who it is without having them do too many influx within their words or their pronunciations to actually depict who it is. Now, the creepier part about this is we know ADR exists. So what if this is actually Sam Jackson sitting in the freaking uh, uh, office with Dane Whitman, and they're just everyone's trying to misdirect us into it being Blade,
No,
and
I
it's actually Mahershala Ali's voice, but we will see Sam Jackson. Because I could see them playing with us like that completely, like ADR and Ali, because he's doing
yeah,
stuff
I know,
for
but like
lighting and
I
stuff for his recordings ready, and then have Sam Jackson actually be the one that's there. I don't think it's going to be that way. I just like I could totally see them pull that type of a subversion move on us because of how
yeah, but
deep nerds
remember,
we are. Where we're like, who is this?
Landon, remember, like Fury is in space right now, so it,
Okay, but that was also in
yeah, I
2024
know, but like
with Spider-Man Far From, or sorry, 2023 Spider-Man Far From Home in the summer of 2023. So there's literally like an entire year plus that has taken place in the MCU that we don't know what's going on with Nick Fury or where he is. So I don't disagree with you. He is in space. But do we know that he's still in space at this point in time? Because it doesn't even say that this is 2024 in the film. We just assume it because it says present day, and present day in the MCU is 2024 based on the Shang-Chi film.
yeah,
So if this is taking place after Shang-Chi, which we assume that it is based on the order that is presented to us within, then yeah, I think that there's some gap here where I don't think it's Fury. I don't want it to be Fury, but it could be,
yeah.
only
From that
because
sense,
you
I
never
get what you
really
mean.
know.
Yeah,
You
true.
know, like
I
again,
yeah, I think
I'm like
I
super
think
on
you
that
may be
detail
right.
just like you are. Because my first thinking was like when I heard that, like when I heard, I was like, oh, that's Fury. I was like, but wait, he's in space. And then I kept trying to fight with myself to figure out like, well, how could he not be in space at this point? And then I came to the conclusion that unless this is timed differently, we have to assume that what we're looking at is present day 2024, which puts this September October timeframe
Hmm.
within the MCU because we know Shang-Chi took place earlier in that year.
I mean, yeah,
So
they
again,
were wearing
speculation
jackets,
until we
so
really know
yeah,
this time
yeah,
frame. But it's also London. London is cold all year
yeah,
round, right?
yeah.
People wear jackets in London constantly.
Yeah, that's
So like
true.
let's not just put the fact that they're wearing jackets to be something. And there was snow on the ground, so like you could make the argument it's like early winter, like November, December timeframe, which is probably fair because if this movie leads into Spider-Man No Way Home, which in chronological order it does right now, then yeah, we have Shang-Chi early 2024 to mid 2024, Celestial or the Eternals from like let's say October through November-ish time frame of
Hmm.
2024, and then we have the Christmas 2024 of Spider-Man No Way Home, and then Hawkeye plays on Christmas 2024 as well with their series that's coming up. So it's
True.
it's 2024 is a busy year for the MCU, and I think we're going to learn a lot hopefully in the next couple series.
That will be a talk for another day.
Yeah, so I just want to give one quick sum up here. I really like this movie. I hope that all of you go and watch. If you've seen this film, you go and watch it again. You form your own opinion about the film. You give your own takes, and you love it for your own reasons or you hate it for your own reasons. Please don't let other people influence you into what media to watch, what media you enjoy, or what media you should like or should not like just based on a review. I am a culprit of this. I do this sometimes. I don't see things immediately because I hear bad reviews or I hear initial bad takes on them, and I try to do my best to get through and sift through a couple positive reviews and a couple negative reviews of some stuff. But please give this movie another chance. If you didn't like it the first time and you're willing to go see it a second time, please give it a shot. I absolutely think that this movie will continue to get better as our
Yes.
understanding of phase 4 and phase 5 of the MCU continue to grow. I don't think this movie will play well or play its best now, just like other previous MCU movies that have gotten better with time, because the more we've learned about the universe, the more we've come to appreciate the stories and the way they're being told within
True.
this universe. I really believe that as we get into phase 5, in past Phase 4, the Eternals will become one of those films that everybody begins to truly love and thinks that it changed the game and was transformative for the genre of films and the MCU as a whole, and allows for more creativity and vastness and scaling, and really brings art into these films compared to it just being a comic book iteration of itself. So please, I loved it. Clearly, I have so many good things to say about this film. I struggle with it a little bit, but you know, I know you're here listening to me right now. If you hated everything I had to say, awesome. So happy that you formed your own opinion. Thank you for sharing it with us. I really appreciate that. If you've loved every word and agree with everything that me and Stormy said today, fantastic. I hope to see you on the next one. And either way, the goal is to just appreciate the content we have for when we have it, and
True.
understand that this is
It's
someone's
the way to
like
go.
work. This is someone's like baby, right? Like Chloe Zhao is like this has to be one of her like favorite films, and she's
Yep.
gushed about this in interviews and talked about how this experience has changed her as a filmmaker and as a director and as just an individual, as a person. So just really, I get that we won't like stuff, but just really think about what what you connect with this film and how you connect to it, because it's this vast cosmic story that takes place over centuries, and we would never ever be able to experience this as a human being ourselves. And the way it's portrayed and the way it's done is very, very organic and smooth. So please just appreciate the path to this film and what this film has brought to us, even if you don't like the plot points or the characters or anything else. Appreciate it for the art that it is, because it is
Yep.
art. It is certainly art.
It is cinema. Like, I'm going to end the video with this. This is the type of comic book movie that even Martin Scorsese would say this is cinema and I like this movie. And that's a that's a feat, you know?
It
So
is.
with that we came to the end of this video. Man, we got like an hour and 15 minutes. Um Again, like always, subscribe to Landon's Twitch channel, aka Boulder Doobies, like in Boulder, the city. It's a city, isn't it?
Boulder the city, do
Like
be
Boulder
like that.
City. Yeah, to be like the. But okay. So subscribe to Boulder Doobies on Twitch, and we will see you in the next video. Oh yeah. Also, all the links to our social medias are in the description of this video. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, that's cool. If not, then that's also cool. All right, guys. See you in the next podcast review, trailer reaction, or whatever. See you guys.